I want you to think of this. How many times have you clicked on the self-improvement video, got extremely fired up, told yourself you're gonna instill some sort of change in your life, just to end up on TikTok 30-40 minutes later, doom scrolling for hours on end? I understand that happens to the vast majority of us, and that's what I like to call the self-improvement trap. Now, if that's you, I'm not here to condemn you. I'm not here to condemn the self-help industry as a whole either, because that would just be hypocritical of me to do, because I run sort of a self-help channel, and this in itself is sort of a self-improvement video. A self-improvement video advising you to be mindful of self-improvement content. Interesting. But my point of making this video is so that you'll understand what the self-improvement trap is, and so that you'll be more mindful, because all of us subconsciously, in one way or another, will fall into the self-improvement trap. And if you are not careful, and if you are not discerning enough, you might actually be doing yourself more harm than good in the long run. I've already spoken briefly about what the self-improvement trap entails. So now, why is it that so many of us fall into the self-improvement trap? Simply because so many of us young people, I'm generalizing here, but a lot of us young people spend our free time on TikTok, doom scrolling for hours on end. If you don't use TikTok, Instagram Reels. But the point is, so many of us spend the bulk of our free time on social media. So every once in a while, we'll binge a few self-improvement videos so that we had this perception that we are doing something productive with our time, when in actuality, all we're doing is doom scrolling. And that's the irony. I'm not blaming the YouTubers. I'm not blaming the self-help podcast. I'm not blaming the author of that self-help book, right? Because we all know that the information presented to us is factual, is logical, which is why we are even motivated to change in the first place, right? Logically, we know that if we were to just put what is being said into practice, our lives would change drastically. But a lot of us don't, of course. Here's the catch. When we binge watch self-improvement videos, when we binge watch Hamza, I don't want to keep calling out Hamza, but when we binge watch self-improvement videos, we get this spike in dopamine. We are essentially riding this dopamine high, which is often disguised as motivation, which is fleeting. This is exactly the reason why you often feel extremely motivated 15 minutes after watching, let's say, a gym reel, but an hour or two later, you feel like you've gone back to square one. You feel unmotivated. And that's because that motivation is not long-lasting and eventually fades away. And this might sound a little bit crazy, but for lack of better words, I like to think that solely binge-watching self-improvement content without taking any action is equivalent to mental masturbation, because all the information that you are consuming is getting stored here. Everything is inside your brain, right? So why bother wasting your brain memory if you're not going to execute what you've consumed? And unfortunately, that's the case for a lot of people. And I'm going to be harsh once again. If all the information is here in your brain, you have essentially not made any progress until that information leaves your brain, until that information gets translated into practical actions, until you take actionable steps towards your goal. That's just the truth. Now, I'm not here to downplay ambition, or rather conviction as a whole, because I know what conviction can do for people. I know how powerful conviction can be, right? Some of y'all might actually genuinely feel a sense of conviction when you consume self-help content. But a lot of us just binge watch self-help content for the sake of it without, feeling convicted. But if you're truly feeling convicted, then good for you, because conviction in itself can incite change. It can spur you towards your goal. Conviction is very powerful. But the truth is, conviction, inspiration, motivation alone is not enough to get you through your self-improvement journey. Because the truth is, self-improvement is a lifelong process. It's a never-ending process. It's not simply just watching a few videos per day. It's going to the gym when you feel like rotting in your bed. It's waking up early in the morning when you feel like snoozing the alarm. And arguably, that's something I struggle with a lot. It's about doing the difficult things, right? You need discipline because inspiration, motivation, all that is good in itself, don't get me wrong. But if you are overly relying on motivation, you are not going to be where you want to be at. You need some sort of discipline to pull you through. And this is why a lot of people quit their self-improvement journey. When things get hard, they quit. They don't understand that self-improvement is a lifelong journey. A lot of people have a misconception of what self-improvement actually is, what self-improvement actually means. I believe at the root of self-improvement is delayed gratification. Is your ability to deny your desires. It's your ability to do difficult things even when you don't feel like it. That is the beauty, I think, of self-improvement, which will spur you towards your eventual goal, which will spur you to where you want to be at. It's not just simply watching a bunch of videos and envisioning how you want your future to look like without taking any action. And you see how that's quite the irony. Because when you're watching self-help videos, you are just getting high on dopamine. You're not actually suffering. You're not actually enduring through the pain, the discipline, right? See, that's quite the irony because watching self-help videos is almost equivalent to instant gratification, just without, maybe the negative impacts on your brain, because self-help videos aren't necessarily damaging to your brain. But that is still completely the opposite of what self-improvement is supposed to be, because self-improvement is all about delayed gratification. It's all about doing the difficult things in the moment, sacrificing the present so that you'll enjoy the future. Of course, I'm not telling you to pick up toxic work ethics and all that gist, but you got to understand that self-improvement isn't an easy journey. It isn't about the consumption of TikTok content. It's about none of that. It's just about delayed gratification, to sum it up. And now, once again, I've spoken so much about the dangers of binging self-improvement content, but I don't want you to forget that I'm not trying to discourage you from watching self-improvement content creators. Like I said, that will be a bit hypocritical of me to do because this is literally a self-help video. Motivation, inspiration, conviction are all helpful in spurring you towards where you want to be at. Use self-improvement videos as tools for you to get inspired, as sources of information, sources of inspiration, whatever it is, right? But understand that to instill change into your life, you need to do the difficult things. You cannot solely rely on self-improvement content if you want to get ahead. Because if you want to get ahead of your peers and all that, once you start taking action, slowly but surely, you'll be one step closer towards your goal. As fellow self-help YouTuber Ralph always says, take action.